In the center of Beijing, surrounded by ancient walls and wide ceremonial gates, lies one of the greatest architectural masterpieces in human history, the Forbidden City. For nearly 500 years, this immense palace complex was the hidden heart of China's empire place, where emperors ruled. Secrets were whispered and power was carefully staged through ritual and tradition. To many visitors today, the Forbidden City is a breathtaking tourist destination filled with golden rooftops and red walls. But for centuries, it was far more than a palace. It was a political machine, a sacred symbol, and a world sealed off from ordinary life, an empire within an empire. This is the story of the Forbidden City, how it was built, what it represented, and why it remains one of the most important monuments on Earth. Why was it called the Forbidden City? The name is powerful land, literal. For most of its history, entry into the palace was strictly controlled. Ordinary people could not simply walk in. Even government officials had limited access. The emperor's inner residence was guarded by layers of gates, rules, and hierarchy. It was forbidden because it was believed to be the sacred space of the Son of Heaven, the ruler chosen by destiny to maintain harmony between heaven and earth. In Chinese imperial ideology, the emperor was not just a political leader. He was the central figure in a cosmic order and his home. The Forbidden City was built to reflect that order. The birth of a new capital. To understand the palace, we must go back to the early 15th century. China was ruled by the Ming dynasty, one of the most influential dynasties in Chinese history. In 1402, a prince seized power and became the Yongle Emperor. He was ambitious, strategic, and determined to reshape China's future. One of his greatest decisions was moving the capital north to Beijing, strengthening control over the empire and protecting against threats from the steppe. But to make Beijing worthy of an imperial capital, Yongle needed something extraordinary, a palace unlike anything the world had ever seen. So in 1406, construction began on what would become the Forbidden City. Building the impossible, the scale of the project was almost unimaginable. It involved hundreds of thousands of workers, craftsmen and artists from across China, rare materials transported from distant provinces, precise engineering and planning based on ancient cosmological beliefs. The palace was completed in 1420. After 14 years of construction, according to tradition, it was said to contain 9,999 rooms, symbolic number. In Chinese culture, the number 10,000 represents heavenly perfection, so the emperor's palace was believed to be just slightly less than heaven itself. Whether the exact number is literal or symbolic, one fact is certain. The Forbidden City became the largest palace complex in the world. A city of gates, courtyards, and control, the Forbidden City is structured like a carefully designed journey. Everything is arranged on a north-south axis, aligned with traditional Chinese geomancy and cosmic order. As you move deeper into the complex, you move closer to the emperor, both physically and symbolically. The palace is divided into two main areas. The outer court. This was the public and ceremonial area where the emperor displayed power. The inner court. This was the private world of the emperor, his family, concubines, servants, and close officials. Each gate, each courtyard, and each hall was built to create a sense of hierarchy. The message was clear. The closer you are allowed to get, the higher your status. The Hall of Supreme Harmony. The stage of power, the heart of the outer court, stands the most majestic building in the complex. The Hall of Supreme Harmony. This was not a place for everyday work. It was a ceremonial stage for the most important events in the empire. Coronations, imperial weddings, major festivals, military victories, the emperor's birthday celebrations. The hall is elevated on a massive marble platform. This physical height reflects symbolic height. The emperor is above everyone else. In this space, architecture becomes political theater. When officials entered the courtyard, they would stand in strict formation. Ritual bows and silence reinforced authority. Even the sound of footsteps on stone contributed to the feeling of control. This hall represents power, not through violence, but through symbolism. A world built on meaning, every detail of the Forbidden City is designed to communicate order. Colors. Yellow roof tiles represent imperial authority. Red walls symbolize fortune and protection. Gold details emphasize sacred prestige. Animals and symbols dragons appear everywhere, carved, painted, or sculpted. In Imperial China, the dragon was a symbol of the emperor himself. Even the number of decorative roof statues mattered. The most important buildings had the most figures, a sign of highest status. Orientation. Traditional belief placed the emperor in the center, facing south. The palace follows this rule. The emperor sits symbolically in the center of the universe, while the world aligns around him. This is why the Forbidden City is often described as architecture, as ideology. The inner court, the emperor's private universe. The outer court was a public stage. The inner court was a hidden world. Here, the emperor's daily life unfolded. Rest, family private meetings, rituals, personal decisions. The main halls of the inner court were the Palace of Heavenly Purity, the Hall of Union, the Palace of Earthly Tranquility. Even their names reflect spiritual order. But behind beauty and luxury existed tension. The inner court was also home to competition, jealousy, and constant political risk. Because in Imperial China, the emperor's household was not separate from politics. It was politics. The concubines, eunuchs, and court life. One of the most misunderstood aspects of the Forbidden City is the role of those who lived inside it. Concubines. Imperial concubines were not just companions. Their position could influence succession, alliances, and power struggles. The birth of a prince could change the future of the empire overnight. Eunuchs served as trusted palace servants because they were believed to pose no threat to the royal bloodline. But over time, many eunuchs gained enormous influence. Some controlled access to the emperor, meaning they controlled power itself. Inside the Forbidden City, power was not always visible. Sometimes it moved quietly through whispers, alliances, and hidden decisions. The palace as a living machine. The Forbidden City was like a carefully organized system. It required thousands of staff, daily deliveries of food and supplies, cleaning and maintenance, security and military patrols, strict schedules of ritual life. Even the emperor's meals were regulated by protocol. The palace also included gardens, libraries, storage halls, workshops, and religious shrines. This was not simply a home. It was a functioning government center designed to keep the empire running. The fall of dynasties. For centuries, the Forbidden City was home to emperors of the Ming dynasty. But in 1644, the Ming collapsed amid rebellion and invasion. A new dynasty took control. The Qing dynasty, founded by the Manchus. The Qing rulers did not destroy the palace. Instead, they adopted it because the Forbidden City represented legitimacy. To rule China, they had to appear as rightful emperors, and the palace was the strongest symbol of that authority. For the next nearly 300 years, Qing emperors ruled from behind these walls. But in the early 20th century, the imperial system began to collapse. The last emperor and the end of an era. 1912. The Qing dynasty ended and China became a republic. The last emperor was Puyi, a child ruler whose life would become legendary. Even after abdication, Puyi remained in the Forbidden City for a time, living in parts of the palace as a symbolic figure of a vanished era. But eventually, he was forced to leave with that. The Forbidden City's imperial life ended. A palace once closed to the world was now becoming something else. A historic monument. The Palace Museum, from power to heritage today. The Forbidden City is known as the Palace Museum and holds one of the greatest collections of Chinese arts and cultural treasures in the world. Inside are imperial robes, ceramics and jade, paintings and calligraphy, furniture and ritual objects, historical archives. The palace has transformed from a center of power into a guardian of history, and yet, its atmosphere remains powerful. Visitors still feel something unique: the weight of time. Why the Forbidden City still matters. The Forbidden City is more than an architectural wonder. It represents the peak of Chinese imperial civilization, the relationship between art and authority, the power of symbolism in government. A worldview where architecture reflects cosmic order is a reminder that empires were not only built with armies, they were built with rituals, myths, and carefully controlled images of greatness, and the Forbidden City mastered that image like no other place on Earth. A city that was never truly silent for centuries. The Forbidden City stood at the center of an empire that shaped Asia and influenced the world. Within its courtyards, rulers made decisions that affected millions. Within its halls, traditions created stability and sometimes hid fear. Within its walls, human ambition met spiritual symbolism. Even today, as tourists walk through gates once guarded by silence, the palace remains what it has always been, a monument to power, a museum of civilization, a city of secrets. And perhaps the most fascinating thought is this: if the Forbidden City could speak, what stories would it tell?